So for folks who are coming in, we're going to get started in a moment. We're just letting folks trickle in. Okay. Okay, I think, given that people are busy and have a lot on the go already this early in January, it probably makes sense for us to get started now. And I want to just introduce myself. My name is Angela Lee. I'm the Director of Partnerships and Research here at the Canadian Race Relations Foundation. Ibrahima, do you want to introduce yourself? You're muted.
Sorry about that. Hi, everyone. Thank you and welcome to our webinar. My name is Ibrahima Gay and I'm the Partnership Manager with CRRF. Welcome.
Sharon, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Sharon. I'm the Programs Manager at the CRRF, and thank you for joining us today.
Great. Yeah, thank you. Welcome to everyone. We're very excited to be launching this fund, and we are very excited to talk through some of the eligibility and all of that, and we'll get to it right now. But before we do, let me just make sure to do our land acknowledgement and say that I'm located on the treaty lands and territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit and the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, the Wendat, and the Haudenosaunee. This territory is within the lands of the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement between the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe and allied nations to peaceably share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. And today, the meeting place of Toronto is home to many First Nations and Inuit and Métis people from across Turtle Island, and I'm very grateful to be working, living, and playing here on this land. Before I just introduce the agenda of the call today, I want to make sure that we're going to be taking questions at the end. And so in order to ask your question, make sure to use the Q&A button. It should be at the bottom of your screen. And if you submit your question through there, then we can monitor the question queue that's happening. This webinar today is only going to be in English. We do have a follow-up 2 webinars in the following weeks, next week and the week after. The one next week is going to be en français in French, and then the last one will be in English again. But certainly you can definitely ask questions, and if you need to access the French one, please do for next week. We are recording this session right now. You probably heard the notice when you came in, and that's the housekeeping. I just wanted to make sure we get through before we jump into the presentation. So we'll be outlining the purpose of the fund, the themes and objectives, the details and eligibility, the application process and support for answering questions. And then we'll have about 30 minutes to answer your questions directly. So please do make sure to use the Q&A function in this Zoom to access or to ask your question. So for folks who don't know, the Canadian Race Relations Foundation, we are a Crown corporation that was created in 1996, and we were created out of the Japanese-Canadian Redress Agreement that was in response to the advocacy from the Japanese-Canadian community after the internment and expulsion from BC during the Second World War. And so the federal government has put in half of our endowment, and the Japanese Canadian community has also put in half of our endowment, and that's how the foundation was created. And so our mandate is that we're dedicated to combating racism and promoting events and education, and to build a more anti-racist society here in Canada. And Tuesday, we announced a new national anti-racism fund that's going to be distributed over 2 years. And this aligns closely with our mission to develop, share, and apply knowledge and expertise to contribute to the elimination of racism and all forms of racial discrimination in Canadian society. As part of the application process, applications will have to show that they align with one or more of the following key themes and objectives of the fund. There are 4 key themes. The first theme is on systemic barriers. Reducing systemic barriers to inclusion by addressing systemic racism in education, healthcare, the justice system, public service, employment, and public life. Research and education, so promoting and increasing the availability and accessibility of research, data, evidence, and community insight on race relations in Canada. Raising public awareness, so informing the public about and highlighting systemic and institutional barriers. And the last key theme is around cultural and intercultural community building. So creating cross-cultural barriers through discussions and dialogue on race, religion, building awareness, and collaboration. Before I go to the next slide, I forgot one thing to mention, which is that we are going to be emailing out these slides. So for anyone who wants to view these afterwards, we will be emailing this out. And then the applications must also show that they will achieve 4 areas of expected results. And so those are, the applications will need to show alignment with at least one of these, if not more. And so that would be to increase public awareness of public policy issues related to race relations, anti-racism, or anti-hate nationally, regionally, or in local communities. Increasing public awareness of Canada's cultural diversity, increasing awareness around factors such as race, culture, ethnicity, or religion that may be hindering full participation of the entire Canadian population in society and the economy. And lastly, increasing knowledge and capacity within communities to address racism and discrimination. And now I'll just hand it over to Ibrahima.
Thank you, Angela. So we are going to do a little deep dive on the funding details. As you can see on the screen, we have 3 types of funding within this our national anti-racism fund, and each funding stream has different criteria and different amount of available funding. So we have the project-based application, events sponsorship application, and the youth initiative sponsorship application. So we are going to do a deep dive on each of these streams in the upcoming slides. So just to note that all proposals for project, event, or use must include a detailed schedule, meaning the deliverable and everything should be completed by December 31st, 2023. So in another word, we're not asking a project to be within 6 months, within 9 months, but it's up to you to propose us, but it has to be all completed by December 31st, 2023. Next slide. 2023. So for the project-based application, we are encouraging organizations working on anti-racism and anti-hate projects to apply to this stream. And as we mentioned earlier, the project must align with one or more of our team/objective and achieve one or more of the expected results that we mentioned earlier. So to be eligible to apply for the project-based application, you must be a registered charity. As recognized by the Canada Revenue Agency, if you're not a registered charity or you're not incorporated, you need to collaborate with a registered charity who will act as a trustee. Therefore, they will be submitting the application in your behalf, but you'll be collaborating with them to implement the project. So for the funding, the total a total of 2 million is available for this stream, and each project, the minimum is 25 to up to 125,000 for each project. We'll work with the successful applicant to establish the follow-up fund according to the deliverable, with some amounts up to 20% of the total amount will be held back until final report is completed. So as you can see on the screen, for this, the deadline for this is January 28 to submit an application for the project-based stream. Next slide, please. For the event sponsorship application, for this stream, we are encouraging events that align with one or more with the key themes or objective and achieve once again one or more of the expected result for the national of the fund. This stream is open to Canadian registered charity as well as non-registered organizations. So organization, even if you're not registered, you are allowed to apply without having a trustee to be able to apply. So it's open to not-for-profit and registered charities. And for this fund, a total of $1 million is available, along with the youth initiative application. We're going to talk about that in the next slide. And the minimum you can apply for this stream is 25,000. So up to 100% will be provided upon sign-off of contract, and a final report is also expected in the next 60 days of completion of the events. What I forgot to mention also is partial funding is available. I forgot to mention it in the project-based application. What we mean by partial funding is if we're not able to fund the total amount, are you open to getting 50% of the amount, or you can you have other sources of funding that is coming with half, and you're coming with applying with half with us. So that's what we meant by partial funding. It's available for both streams. So for this, the deadline for this, it's an ongoing intake until December 2022. So unlike the project-based application, you have until December to submit an application for if you have an event. Next slide, please. For the youth initiative sponsorship application, again, similar to the event, a Canadian registered charity and not-for-profit organization are eligible to apply. But on top of that, any grassroots organization or recognized student groups are also welcome to apply. As mentioned, $1 million is available for the events and the youth initiative. A maximum of 2,500 is available for each successful application. And this time, the full amount will be provided upon signing of contract. So there won't be no hold back, or once you get approved. So a final report is also expected after the completion of the initiative, and on same as the events application, ongoing intake until December 31st, 2022. So funding, we have set up some funding limitation. So meaning that for applications under the project-based stream, we are only allowing one project max by per organization. So for the youth and events application, you can apply max to, you can submit up to 2 applications. What do you want to mention here though? Application or initiative or events currently receiving funding through either the Community Support Multiculturalism and Anti-Racism Initiative or program anti-racism program action, the Anti-Racism Action Program from the Department of Canadian Heritage will only be considered if the application is to extend or expand or replicate in another community. But if it is for the same project, same community, nothing changing, we won't be able to fund the application. Thank you. Next slide. Again, we will we will not support for-profit organization are not eligible. Federal institution, hospital, and long-term care facilities, individuals, organization whose purpose is solely related to political activity as defined by the Canadian Revenue Agency, and professional association. However, when I want to mention here that municipalities are eligible to apply as long as their project is aligned with the theme and objective, and they meet the eligible, the remaining of the eligible criteria. Next slide, please. So what's eligible? So salary is eligible, operations, program cost, and these need to be tied to the project, event, or initiative. We are allowing up to 15% of the total budget for overhead and administrative cost. So also we have some ineligible expenses, meaning addition, if you're looking to add basic shelter, bed, or housing bed, cost for grants, fundraising, scholarship that are related to direct financial assistance in the form of payment to individual or family are not eligible. Partisan political activity, rent supplement, services covered by provincial health authorities, services provided by medical professional or support of operating deficit, purchase of real property, all of these, the list, all of these items are not eligible under the fund. The evaluation criteria. So once we get the application, we are really looking to see if the project, events, or youth is aligned with the fund team and objective, and also are they going to achieve one or more of the expected result. So also it is, we want to also know that if the organization who are applying have the capacity, the experience, and the governance, the structure, the capacity to successfully carry out the project based on past experience. So it is very important to demonstrate that through the application. Also the need in the community, the region or the national context. It is very important to demonstrate a clear recognition plan. So if you have a chance to look at the sample of question that is on our website, we are really looking to see how you are going to recognize CRRF and how you are going to promote these events or project or youth initiative. Again, also propose a budget, a detailed, reasonable balance, and takes into consideration the efficiency and effective use of the fund that must be indicated, or if the project event can continue, even if the cannot continue, even if the CRRF was only to allocate partial funding. How would you cover the remaining? As I mentioned earlier, we are allowing partial funding, but you want to tell us where you're going, where are how are you going to carry out the remaining the activities with the other sources funding. It could come from your organization budget, it can come from other funding organization too. So, and we are just asking an evaluation plan for the project-based applications. If you are applying for submitting an application for a project, you need to submit a clear outline. You have to clearly outline the evaluation process, the metric that will be used, and you will need to incorporate it in the final reports. And also let us know what are the next steps after this project. What are you going to do after this project is finished? Next slide, please. So this is just a sample that of what we're looking for. As I mentioned earlier, that how important recognition is. So if you are successful, you must publicly acknowledge the financial support received from us through this fund, including our logo in all your communication material and promotional activities. And public acknowledgement text should say the following. This is the guidance we are recommending. Next slide, please. So the application process. So I just want to mention here, even though we have posted the application questions on our website, we are only accepting application through our online portal. So, and the online project base, as I mentioned earlier, the deadline is January 2028. Sorry, January 28, 2022. And but the portal will remain open only for youth and for events and youth initiative sponsorship. So decision will be made by a team of reviewer composed of CRRF board member and supported by a team of CRRF staff. So the first wave, this is the first wave because we are considering having another intake of project sometimes towards the end of the year, but we'll announce that. So, but this one approved, successful applicant will be notified by the end of March, by the end of next month, by email. So I just wanted to mention, give some instruction about when you are applying. It is very important to review the application questions and prepare all the required information and documents. When we're not really asking for a lot, because we have decided to simplify the process for us and for everyone, for the community. So this basically, there is 3 sections: applicant information, initiative information and the proposal with the questions and the attachment. The attachment, as usually we're looking for an itemized budget, a sponsorship package if you have it, especially if you're applying for an event or use initiative. Also, we're looking for a financial statement of your organization. If you have audited, we will rather take the audited financial of the last year. And we are also looking for letter of support, but the letter of support is really good to show your credibility or the work you've been doing throughout the community, but it is not really decide. We're not going to use that to decide if we are funding you or not, but it's really good to have it but it is optional. So, and probably if you are interested in applying, if you're logging, we are also mentioning that you must complete all sections of this application, of the application form online, and all fields are mandatory unless indicated. So, and we are really looking for answers that be clear, concise, and really tell us what your project is about, and when you're answering the questions. So be clear and concise. And on that, if we are, unfortunately, we will not take incomplete application. We will not, if your application is missing a budget item, or you're not, there is some question you have skipped, there is no answer, those are incomplete application, and we will not be considering those applications. So again, a complete application include all the answers, a signature, and the supporting material, as I mentioned earlier. Next slide. I think this is the last slide, and we can probably dive into the Q&A.
Yeah. So we have a lot of questions. If you have questions, please throw them into the Q&A. And we did get some questions in advance in the pre-webinar survey. And I'm wondering, Sharon, do you have those that you can just ask?
Yeah. There's also many repetitive questions from the Q&A, so I will also address those. But
okay, great.
I guess first off, are themes being prioritized?
No, we are not really prioritizing, because we consider that all 4 teams' objectives are important and need to be considered in the fight to eliminate racism. However, if you are selecting a team, 1 or more, it's really need to be clearly aligned with your project objective. So it's all about really understanding that your objective, what you're trying to do, is really aligned with one of or more of the 4 teams and objective we have just described, and also achieve 1 or more of the expected result.
Yeah, thank you. There were many questions regarding, I guess many organizations are still waiting to hear back from CSMARI and or ARAH funding. Can they submit the same project, or are they able to apply with an extension of the proposed project, or how does that work?
Yes, as I mentioned, if it is the same project, we won't be eligible. But if you're trying to expand or replicate that was previously funding by Heritage Canada to another community or another region, that's eligible. So it's That's really tricky because you are waiting. The question mentioned that they're waiting for an answer from, yeah, but we won't duplicate. We won't be duplicating funding if for the same project.
Yeah.
Great. And next question. Is it better to apply in partnership with another organization?
Well, partnerships are always encouraged when you're working with the community. So, but it is not mandatory for us unless you are not a registered charity or you're not incorporated and you want to apply for the project-based stream. That you will need to collaborate with the registered charity or an organization that is incorporated, and they will have to act as a trustee, and they will have to submit the organization. But for the events or youth initiative, we encourage collaboration, but it's not mandatory.
Okay. There were also several questions regarding the 15% admin cost. So would this be 15% of the staff salary, operation, program costs? Just some more clarification on that.
Yes, thank you for this. Just actually the whole budget. If you're asking for 15,000 to do an event, or you're asking for 115,000 to for your project, it's the 15% of that total amount you're requesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
And does training fall under the events category? And as a follow-up, would you be able to provide an example of some projects and how projects differ from events?
Training is like more an activity. So it has to be part of an event or a project. So we don't it really depends your ideas of a project, what you're trying to accomplish here. If it is raising awareness towards racial biases across Quebec, and training is part of it, that's fine. But doing training for getting our money to do training to corporate organization, that won't be. But if it is throughout, you're doing an event that have, or a project that include training, that will work. It's all depend on the idea and what you want to accomplish, and also once again alignment with the objective and the expected achieving one of or more of our expected result.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what I would add to that is that, certainly training is an activity that could be part of either a project or an event. And so it's really also about how you, your application and how you frame it. And, the most important thing is really to make sure that you are being very clear in terms of how you align with the themes and the expected results.
Yeah, exactly. I think there was a part of the question asking for example. Right now, as you know, this is the first wave of the National Anti-Racism Fund. So we won't be really, we don't want to be descriptive or what we're looking for, because we're trusting that there is so many good ideas and creativity in the community to fight racism. So we are looking for your ideas. Hopefully, when we get to the next wave, we'll have good projects that is really aligned with what you do. So at that time, we'll be able probably to share some examples.
Definitely.
This seems to be more of a technical question. So it says through the portal, there's no choice given in terms of charitable status or nonprofit status. So for charitable status, there's only an option for yes or no. If you say no, then it's not legible. So should they click yes and then list the trustees' CRA number instead?
Actually, the trustee should be applying. So you should say yes and put the trustee's CRA numbers.
Okay.
Yeah.
And let's see, there's many questions about clarifying the number of applications one organization can submit. I know this was touched upon earlier in the presentation, but can an organization submit more than one application in any of these streams? And can a registered charity apply and also act as a trustee for another project?
Sure. That's as long if you're applying for one project under the project-based stream and max 2 projects for the event and use application are allowed. So, but you can have one idea for a project and apply as a project, and you want to do an event with that idea, expanding that idea or replicating that idea throughout another community, collaborating with another organization, that's also welcome. But as long the organization is respecting the one project, the one project max per organization for project-based stream, and the 2 application max for the youth and event initiative streams.
Okay.
Okay.
Is there any prioritization given to regional versus national projects or events?
No. We're not prioritizing region. We are looking to for good projects that is once again align with our teams and objective and achieving one or more of the expected result. Also, community need, what the involvement in the community. So that's all what we're looking for. We are hoping that we'll be getting across the country good projects, but we are not really prioritizing regions. We are prioritizing strong application that are aligned with the teams and that demonstrate a community need and also an impact and in the community they were trying to serve.
For those who are just joining, I just want to note that this PowerPoint will be sent to everyone. So a lot of the questions are answered within the PowerPoint.
Yes, I think we, Angela did mention that we are sending this after this, we'll send the PDF, the PowerPoint PDF to all the attendees.
And I guess just to add that our website and the section on the National Anti-Racism Fund has all of the guidelines that we've talked about and has some resources there that can help you develop your application, including we do have so all of the applications will go through the online portal, but in advance, we are sharing a PDF copy of both versions of the application form so that you can view the questions before you start your application in the application portal.
Great. So I guess moving on, why is there a relatively short time frame to submit applications? Is it because the funding must be allocated before the fiscal year?
Yeah, and I noticed that there was a question earlier in the Q&A about the deadline. So I do want to reiterate that the deadline for project applications is January 28th and not the 21st. So just please keep that in mind. Definitely the project-based applications have a tight timeline for the application period, and we are aiming to be able to make our first wave of funding decisions by the end of March 2022, just so that we're able to get some of this funding out in this fiscal year. I will say and reiterate what Ibrahim has said, is that this is the first wave of project funding, and there will be a subsequent wave later on this year. And even though the project-based application deadline is January 28th, we are doing ongoing intake for events and youth sponsorships. So keep that in mind that certainly the projects one is going to be coming up very soon, but we certainly will have ongoing intake for the other project stream or the other sponsorship stream.
Great. I guess next question, are matching funds required for either the project stream or the event stream?
No.
No, we're not thinking this. That's a great question, but we're not considering matching funds. We are not, partial funding, yes, but non-matching fund.
And I guess there are several questions regarding the turnaround for approvals. So when exactly would they expect to hear back?
We are aiming for end of March. So by end of March, approved successful applicant will be notified by email by end of March.
In assessing the applications, do you consider the location of the project or event, or if you could just speak more towards the evaluation or criteria?
Yeah, just the evaluation criteria. We're not really, because you're applying from BC or from Ontario, that we should evaluate you different. No, we are really basing our assessment on the evaluation criteria I just mentioned.
Okay. I'm assuming the answer to most of these is yes, but there are several questions regarding, can we apply for projects that take place in multiple cities, or if they take place virtually because of the pandemic? Are there any restrictions on types of events or projects?
Yes, there is no restriction, and you can do your workshop, your training virtually. So that's no problem.
Roughly what percentage of the total grant do you plan or expect to allocate in the first application wave?
A percentage of a grant? We don't know yet.
Wait,
Percentage.
sorry, Sharon, can you say the question again?
Roughly what percentage of the total grants do you plan or expect to allocate in the first application exercise that closes at the end of this month?
I mean, I would say that we don't have a set amount that we've already dedicated for this fiscal year. We do have this envelope to be able to fund over the next 2 years. But some of this is that this is the first time we are doing this, and with this larger budget amounts. And so we are also awaiting to see the applications that come in. So we do envision that this will have we'll at least have this wave of funding going out before the end of this fiscal, and another wave of funding going out towards the end of the year, but and the ongoing intake for events and youth. But there's not really a set amount that we're meant to give away before to fund before the end of this fiscal.
How many letters of support are required, and are audited statements also required?
Letters of support are not required. It's only optional if you have it. It's not a decision-making point. It can help, as I mentioned earlier, knowing that that you're well known in the community, or other organizations are are aware of your application. That's good, but it's not required, and it's not a decision factor. Audited financial, it's okay. We know that not all, especially small organization, don't need to are not required to have audited financial, or they don't have really big revenue to that need to be audited. So we prefer if you have it, you submit it, but if you don't, you can give it unaudited financial statement.
There is a question regarding the grant review committee. So they want to know who makes the final decision regarding an application and if the committee is represented by a diverse group of people.
As I mentioned, and Angela, you can add more. As I mentioned throughout the presentation, the decision will be made by a subcommittee from our board, but supported by a team of CRRF staff.
And there are several questions regarding how exactly they should define the systemic and also youth. Does it can it include children such as young as 0 to 5 years of age, or is there anything about
that? That's a really good question, because when we were thinking about youth, it's young people. Young people mostly we're thinking about teenager to probably 13 to 29 years old. But as long it makes sense what you're doing, I'm really excited to see a project about fighting racism that aim for 5 years old. That would be super exciting and I'm sure very innovative. But we don't really put a limit on. We don't really define youth, but we're hoping to target young people, high school, elementary school, high school, university, young people from 13 to 29. But if there is a good project that is aligned and that is really well thought out, thought through, that's aiming to for 5 years old, why not?
I mean, I guess originally when we were thinking through the stream of funding, we were wanting to see youth-led initiatives where young people under 30 would be leading the initiatives, but certainly we've purposely left it a bit open just to see what kind of projects would come through, because we want to see innovative projects or initiatives come and be able to address the certain need among young people to be working in this space. Absolutely. Yeah.
And I guess just as a follow-up, several questions came in regarding how you define professional association.
Professional association, meaning corporate or organizations that are really not community driven. It can be community driven, but it's for profit. We're thinking about for profit because usually when you're doing professional development, you're trying to gain something. That's what we're thinking. It's usually it falls under to us for profits. But Angela, if you have a definition.
Yeah, I mean, I would echo that. Essentially, the funding that we're looking to distribute is meant to be for organizations that are devoted to nonprofit ventures or that are charitable organizations and organizations where it's not profit driven, and so that is part of the reason why we've included professional associations. But certainly if that person would like more clarity, they can email the grants email address and we can follow up with them directly.
How far in advance do applications for event proposals and youth initiatives need to be submitted?
Can you say it again? Yeah.
How far in advance do applications for event proposals and youth initiatives need to be submitted?
Okay. I mean, we are definitely aiming for a 6 to 8 week service standard for events and youth initiatives. So if you could just keep that time frame in mind. Shorter timeframes, we can try to accommodate, but really just aim for that 6 to 8 weeks.
And I guess just clarification regarding trustees. You want the trustee to be the main applicant?
Yes, we will, because they're going to be accountable for the fund. So we would love to see the trustees organize the information on the application.
Okay. And also, I guess they missed the earlier answer, but can a registered charity apply, but also act as a trustee for another project?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. I guess I'm not sure if if application is denied, is there an opportunity to correct or amend the application and resubmit?
Unfortunately, no. If it is decline, we won't be able to, not this phase, this wave, this round, but you can come back next earlier, for the round 2, which we are aiming to launch that towards the end of the year. So yes, if you decline, you can email us, ask for feedback. We are open to that, and come back with the same project or event next round.
Yeah, and I guess I would add, in terms of going through the application process online, there is the portion where you're putting into like the boxes, your responses, and you can even though you've put the content into the boxes, you will have an opportunity at the very end to review it one more time before you submit. So just make sure to take the time to review and make sure everything is in there, and click on submit.
See, how exactly does a trustee relationship work? Does a trustee write the report, or the sponsor's organization that does the work submit the report? And also, if there's a limit to how many projects you can trustee as a charity.
Well, we are, as I mentioned earlier, the trustee is the applicant, and they're accountable for this fund, so they have to prepare, of course, in collaboration with the other organization. They have to prepare the final report and submit all information that is required with the final report. Was there a second part of the question? Was that the only question?
If there's a limit to how many projects.
Oh yeah, thank you for that. There is no limit. We're not setting limits. You can be a trustee for as many organizations as you wish, but you will be accountable for that. Organization will be accountable, and will be submitting the application, will be submitting the report, and if we need to contact the person, contact has to come from that the trustee organization.
Okay. Is there a budget template available?
We did not really, as we didn't want to be so descriptive, but as I mentioned earlier, in the assessment criteria, the budget need to be itemized. What are the expense? What are the requested amount? A line that explains what are the budget for, and tied to the deliverable. So real and itemized budget. We're not saying this is the format, but as long the budget makes sense and reasonable, and especially the costs are adding up, and also tied to the deliverable of the project. That's what we're looking for.
Okay. In terms of projects on systemic barriers, do they need to address all systems, or can they focus on one or two. So for example, just the healthcare system, youth justice system,
Yeah.
or okay.
Yeah, you don't have to address them all. You can just address one or two. You don't have to address all of the different systems that we listed in the guidelines.
I believe there are obviously many questions that are still coming in, but I believe we should be wrapping up. But if you do have any follow-up questions, I believe you can send emails to grants@crrf-fcr.ca, and we'll try to answer those as well. There is another session in next week and also the following week, so you can also ask your questions then.
Yes, as we mentioned earlier, we'll have a session in French next week, Thursday the 13th, from 2 to 3. That's going to be in French only. And the following week, Wednesday the 19th, we'll have another session in English from 4 to 5 p.m. Eastern time, and the same Eastern time as well for the 13th.
Okay, actually, like we do have a couple more minutes. Why don't we just take 1 to 2 more questions and then we'll wrap after that. Are there more in the Q&A?
Yeah, just trying to filter.
Okay.
Let's see, I guess there are several questions regarding if municipalities are eligible to apply.
Municipalities are eligible to apply.
And if you could give any more clarifications regarding the evaluation process.
The evaluation process, as I mentioned, we are really looking for alignment. It is a really good decision making, because even if the project is great, very innovative, but it is not really aligned with that could be a decline factor if there is no alignment or doesn't achieve one or more of our expected result. That's big. And the second thing we're looking for is the need. You really need to demonstrate you really need to demonstrate the need in the community, the region, or the region or the national need. Even nationally, a project can have an impact across all the provinces, but you have to demonstrate the need. And second of all, the involvement of the population, the communities or population you're trying to serve, how they are involved. And the other one also we are looking for is the recognition. What are your plans to recognize CRRF? And also, if you are applying for a project, if it is a project, another decision factor is an evaluation plan. How are you going to evaluate this project, and what are the next steps? So in a nutshell, that's what those key point we're looking: alignment and community need, and evaluation plan, and next step if you're applying, and the recognition plan. Those are really the big factor of when you're deciding. If you have a chance to look at the details application form that we have uploaded, we have made available through our website, you will see that all that's really online. And just please be concise and be clear in your answers. And in the budget, you'll have an opportunity. We didn't want to provide a template or to be too descriptive. So in your budget, you'll also have a chance to tell us what are you how the money you are, the cost you're requesting, and how it is tied to the deliverable of the project. So those are also really helpful for us to assess your application. And again, the financial statement, audited preferred, if you have them, are really good to know that to assess the capacity of the organization. That's the rest is letter support is not mandatory, it's optional. A sponsorship package is also good if you are doing an event or a youth initiative that is mostly around events, because we're talking about youth leadership. So those are really encouraged, but it's not mandatory. Those are really what we are looking for in applications.
Definitely. Great. Thanks. Thank you, Rahima. Thank you, Sharon. There was
Thank
one
you.
last question in the Q&A that I was just looking at, and it was whether or not a youth project that was larger than $2,500 could apply into the project stream. Yes, that's totally possible. So long as you meet the eligibility criteria, you can definitely do that if it's a larger project than $2,500. But the last thing I'll just leave us with is if you do have questions, please check out the other webinars that are happening, one next week, one the following week. All that information and sign up for that is on our website. And if you have further questions and clarifications, certainly you can email grants@crrf-fcrr.ca. Okay, I think with all of that, we'll have to just break because our time is up, but we really appreciate all the questions and very much appreciate all the enthusiasm of folks asking questions too, because we're very excited to launch the fund and very excited to be able to start receiving applications. So thank you, everyone, and have a great day.
Thank you, everyone.